Okay, so we're on the 7th chapter. What have we discussed so far in the 7th chapter? Can anybody give me some highlights? What has been discussed till now? Anybody give me at least 3 things that we have discussed so far in this chapter. Just a bullet point kind of a thing.
One point, Prabhu, is Krishna. Lord Krishna is the source of everything. He's everywhere.
Okay, yes, that's the one point. What else?
Our past brothers, the Chinese.
What else? Give it a try. There's no wrong answers. Please give a try. What is Krishna saying? Achyut Radhe Mataji, do you remember? You asked me a question last time, so I hope you'll remember what we were talking about.
Yes, Prabhuji. I think in this chapter, we are hearing about the best qualities or opulences of the Lord and what He is to everyone. He is all in all, first thing, and then in various spheres of life, he's describing what he is actually.
Okay.
So,
yes, he's giving us different ways by which we can perceive him in matter.
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. What was the essence of the first 3 verses that Krishna was highlighting? He talked about one thing in the first verse. We talked about how the verse was reverse and started from one point and took us all to the state of Mai asakta manaha partha. So Mai asakta mana. So where does that start from? Mai asakta mana. Where does it start from? What was the other end of the verse? Anybody remembers? The first verse of this chapter. Nobody remembers that? Should we go back and do this first verse again then? That's the most important point of this chapter. Not just this chapter, the entire Bhagavad Gita. The first verse, what we read and how Krishna explained the whole hierarchy. Everybody has a Bhagavad Gita around them. Can quickly look or just Google it online. And please tell me what was that essence that Krishna was giving in the first verse.
He was trying to say that by the practice of yoga, we can go back to him, that we have to do devotional service to him. We have to think about him and do everything for him. Something like that.
But there was something very specific he was saying in that first verse.
I'm
What
trying
was-
to...
Prabhu, we should hear regularly. Shrinu.
That's Shrinu, yes.
Yeah.
Shrinu, yes. Shrinu is hearing. So everything begins from hearing. And Prabhupada, for that very reason, he quotes the verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, which explain the whole process. That's 1.2.16 to 1.2.21. Prabhupada gives the whole hierarchy. Actually, Sukadev Goswami is giving the whole hierarchy, and Prabhupada is highlighting it in the first verse. That it goes all the way from, let's just go there. This is the first verse, and here Prabhupada is giving the whole hierarchy right here. So this is the verses are from 17 to 21, but you can even read 16 because 16 is where Krishna or Sukadeva Goswami says that even before hearing, this Shranvatam, Shravana, it comes service. That how do you even get the qualification to hear or hear in a way that it affects us? Millions of people hear Bhagavad Gita, they have saptas, that is week of Bhagavatam reading, but they again go out of it and they still continue their practices. So it's not making any difference in their lives. They're gaining some sukriti, but they're not making any substantial difference. So service. So we accumulate we accumulate sukriti, and then we come into a position that we come in connection with a devotee, a pure devotee, and then we start to hear Shranvatam, so Krishna. Hirdantastu he abhadrani, whatever is wrong or the knots in our heart. Vidhunoti. Vidhunoti means the cleanser. Krishna it's another name for Krishna. So he's a suhrit, so he cleans it up. And then all the bad things are removed. Then bhakti bhavati naishtiki. So nishtha comes. We become fixed in our process. And then all the modes are gone. Rajas, tamas, everything goes away. Sthitam sattve. So then we are established in mode of goodness completely. So then all the way, so Drishta evatmanishwari. Drishta, then we are able to see Krishna face to face. So the whole process has been explained, and it all starts from Tat Shrunu. Tat Shrunu, this verse right here. So please don't forget that this is the essence of not just this chapter, but in general, the entire philosophy that Prabhupada has given us. It depends on Shravanam Kirtanam. Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Pad Sevana, Dasya, all that. So it goes the 9 process of that in the 7th canto, 15th chapter, Prahlad Maharaj gives to us. So the beginning is Shravana, hearing. Shravana. It all begins with hearing. So yes, that's the most important, that's the important part. And then we also Krishna discussed about the different categories of energy that he has, starting from Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu. The 5 gross elements, Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu, come. And then Mano, Buddhir, Ahankar, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So he does that. So that's the another essence that's coming. And then once Krishna describes that, then Krishna starts opening up about himself, that how can he be perceived in everything. So we did up to 9, so we'll continue with 10. O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. So he's the original seed of all existence. So Krishna is the Bijam. He's the Bijam of all everything. Bija, yeah. So this is the Krishna is revealing to us how to perceive him in matter. So he says, Bija mam sarvana bhartana sarvabhutana vidhi partha sanadana buddhir buddhi matam asmi. Right? So buddhi, the knowledge, the intelligence, buddhi Prabhupada is translating as intelligence, buddhi matam, of the intelligent. So the intelligence of the intelligence is also coming from Krishna. And Krishna then very specifically says this in the 15th chapter. Sarvasya chaham hirdaya sanivishto mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Mata smritir jnanam, knowledge comes from Krishna. So everything is coming from Krishna. Remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So buddhi matam asmi. So Krishna is giving that. And then tejas vinamaham. So tejas means the ability of a person. For example, Prabhupada could subdue others in any assembly with his knowledge, with his prowess, with his intelligence. So he could do that. So Prabhupada, so the tejas was coming from Krishna. And then further, in Srimad Bhagavatam, is it in Bhagavatam? I don't think it's in Bhagavatam, but there is a story about Samba, who's the son of Krishna, he goes to kidnap Lakshmana. Lakshmana is the daughter of Duryodhan. And he single-handedly defeats all the Kauravas. He defeats the, the Bhishma, Dronacharya, everybody, he defeats them, right? So that's also Tejas. That's another kind of Tejas that's coming up, right? So Tejasvi Namaham. So Krishna is saying that. Tejasvi Namaham. I'm the prowess of the all-powerful men. And we discussed this Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetanam. We discussed about this also, what that means. He's the prime eternal among all eternals. He's the supreme living entity of all living entity, and he alone is maintaining all life. So he's the source of everything. So that's the 10th verse. Then Krishna will continue here. Balam balvatam chaham kama raga vivarjitam dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bhartarshabha. I'm the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I'm sex life which is not contrary to religious principles, or lord of the Bharatas. So I'm the strength of the strong, Krishna is saying, right? But it has to be devoid. It has to be kamaraga vivarjitam, not being utilized selfishly. Then it is Krishna, right? So a romantic relationship between a man and woman, it's not also contrary to religious principles. It is Krishna. This might seem contradictory to what we have read earlier in the 3rd chapter, for example. Krishna says, Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna Samudbhava, Mahashano Mahapapma, Vidhiye Namya Vaidana. So what he's saying is Kamesha, Krodh. So Kama, lust, is the all-devouring sinful activity, right? So when two living entities, they experience a loving affection, right? Where does that rasa originate from? It originates from Krishna. So when Krishna is not in the picture, the relationship is selfish. It becomes selfish. And then it's not Krishna. So Krishna is very clearly saying, Kama Raga Vivarjitam. A desire to enjoy it ourselves makes it non-Krishna. Or in other words, some people say that, how can God create such negativity, so much sin in this world? So it's not God creating it. It's us human beings, living entities creating it. And Prabhupada was once, he was traveling in an airplane. It's given in the Leelamrita, the 6th volume, the story that the pilot comes and talks to Prabhupada, and he says that, he asks him that, what is evil? So Prabhupada tells him that for God there is no evil, and or there's no good or evil. So so he said, then the pilot asked Prabhupada, then, does it mean that the good and bad, or good and the evil, are all of equal importance? Prabhupada said no. So Prabhupada said, for Krishna there is no evil. Just like when we are standing in the sun, if we are facing the sun, we cannot see our shadow. But the moment we turn our back to the sun, we will see our shadow. So technically, who's creating the shadow? I'm creating it by turning away from Krishna. Similarly, there is no evil. The evil is being created by us, right? For us, there is light and darkness. There is shadow and so if we we create that negativity, the sin, as soon as we turn away from Krishna, right? So therefore God is all good. There's no negativity in there. So Krishna is explaining here now that when you're experiencing a loving affection, that rasa also originates from me, right? And going back to the first verse of this chapter, when we do that, the Shravana Kirtanam, when we do Shravana Kirtanam, when we love Krishna, then in our heart, we develop the ability to love anyone selflessly. This kind of loving reciprocation leads to a greater fulfillment for us. therefore we are able to offer love even though it is not reciprocated. So that kind of a quality develops in us when we connect with Krishna through tachrunu, through hearing. That's what happens. Sometimes people even call Krishna lusty. They say Krishna is also lusty. They say that when we satisfy our senses, it's not purifying for us. It's actually, but then when Krishna does it, it is purifying for others. In the Gopi Gita, Gopis say that one finds perfection of existence by being enjoyed by Krishna. Jayati te dikam janmana vrja, janmana vrja. Jayati te dikam janmana vrja. Right? So, so when Krishna is in the picture, he's all purifying. Right? So by that, our perfection is also we also get perfected. So Krishna is never lusty. It's only when I'm engaged in this material senses or material modes of nature is when that lust comes into the picture. When I remove Krishna out of the picture. When Krishna enjoys one of his own, he's not lusty. Right? Just like somebody owns a sweet shop. Okay. And then he's sitting in the shop, and then he picks up a gulab jamun and eats it, and then rasmalai and eats it. Nobody comes and asks him, why did you pay for it? No. So because the shop belongs to him. Similarly, when Krishna is enjoying with his devotees, you cannot say, oh, Krishna, why are you enjoying somebody else's wife or somebody else's something of that sort? So for Krishna, that doesn't exist. Right? So when we as devotees or grastas, as most of us are grastas, so when we grastas, we follow the codes of romantic engagement in the light of dharma. We are also like brahmacharis. Prabhupada says that people who are living in a grasta ashram, but who are practicing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, they are also brahmacharis. They're very much like brahmacharis. We do not see children as a product of lust, right? In the early days of ISKCON, in some pockets, it was seen that way, right? So, but then Prabhupada clarified that Krishna himself is clarifying it. But then Prabhupada also clarified it that no, if you having children you're propagating Krishna consciousness with that thought in mind, then that's all also brahmacharya, actually. Right? So, yeah. I remember Bhakti Tirath Maharaj, he wrote an article about how you can harness the sexual energy for world peace. It was a very kind of mind-boggling title, Harnessing Sexual Energy for World Peace. And he was saying that by practicing brahmacharya, you can create world peace. Why? Because all the lust, when the lust comes into the picture, as Krishna has told us in the second chapter, Dhihaito Vishyan Pumsham, Sangashteshu Upjayate. So when that lust comes in, when we start getting attached to something, then lust comes into the picture. Right? Even when we see in Arjun, when he married Subhadra, he came as a sannyasi, the garb of a sannyasi to attract Subhadra. It was all planned by Krishna. So it's not like that Krishna is against romantic engagements. It's not like, oh, Krishna says, no, just leave everything. No, it's not that. All he's asking for us is to integrate him into the picture. That's all he's asking. Right? So, yes, so Krishna also likes romantic engagement. So this is the 11th verse. 12th, okay. So now Krishna is summarizing everything in this 12th verse. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So Prabhupada is saying the purport then, all material activities in the world are being conducted under the three modes of material nature. Although these material modes of nature are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is not subject to them. For instance, under the state laws, one may be punished, but the king, the lawmaker, is not subject to that law. Right? So this is one of the basic concepts of Bhagavad Gita, the three modes. This is the first mention of the three modes, three gunas, right? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, right? So Asura, right? So Asuras are people who delight in carnal pleasures, right? The Asu means material body, and Ramante, Ra is coming from the word Ramante, means to enjoy. Anybody who delights in carnal pleasures is an Asura, right? So all this comes from Krishna. This solves the principle of evil in Christianity. Krishna is saying that I'm not in them; they are in me. Christianity talks of Satan and God, and they are always in a constant tussle. But according to the philosophy, that's the Vedic philosophy, that's not the case. Satan is never going to compete with God. Like, so not the demons are going to compete with Krishna. That never happens. Right? So Prabhupada has clarified that for us as we discuss. Shadow is coming when we turn away from the sun. It's not that Krishna is creating that shadow. It's just that the negativity, the evil is coming because we are turning away from Krishna, right? So evil, we are the immediate cause. Evil is created by us. Achinta bhed tattva. That's the philosophy. So Krishna is summarizing that I can go on telling you, but just understand whatever you see exceptionally powerful or beautiful is coming from me. Just understand that. That's what Krishna is establishing in this. And we're not going to go over the details of the three modes. I'm presuming you all know the three modes, at least overview of them, what they are and what they mean. A lot of it will be discussed in the 14th and 17th chapter, and also 18th. The part of 18 will also bring out these three modes. Krishna will talk at length about these three modes. Determination in the three modes, sacrifice, food, everything. He'll describe so many things in these three modes. So we will go into more detail about these modes then. So, deluded by the three modes, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So the whole world is enchanted by the three modes. Those who are bewildered by the three modes cannot understand that transcendental to this material nature is the Supreme Lord Krishna. Yes, so Krishna here is mentioning that that's what's happening here. So the whole world does not know me. Why we are not able to connect with Krishna? It's primarily because we are entangled in these three modes, right? And depending on which mode we are in, the farther away we are from Krishna, right? So the essential question being answered here, Krishna is answering, is that even though Krishna is saying this, hey, I'm in the water, I'm the taste of water, Punyo Gandhan Prithvicha, I'm the smell of this fragrance of the earth, and why are we not able to comprehend that? Why are we not able to perceive Krishna? Okay. If he is so pervasive, why are we not able to do it? And Krishna is saying, Tribhir Gunamai Bhave. So that is the three modes, Ebhi Sarvam Idam Jagat. Right? Entirety of the creation is completely pervaded by these three modes. So we have the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas here. So, and if you notice that everything in this world is a permutation and combination of these three, the three different modes. Just like we have TV screens, right? Earlier on in the olden days, we had those, what was those? Cathode tubes. It was primarily RGB, right? Red, green, and blue. These three colors would create all the other colors combination, right? Now it is LED, but then the basis still remains same, RGB, right? So similarly, this entire more material creation we see is made of the three modes, right? But because these three modes are so powerful, they take over our consciousness. So Krishna is saying that people cannot understand me because I'm hidden behind these three modes. Right? So guna means the quality, the mode, but gula also means rope. So that's the other meaning of guna. So guna means it binds us also, right? And we all have you all must have watched a movie in a theater, right? So we all have this experience of watching a movie. So what's the prerequisite for watching a movie? The first thing is complete darkness. If there is even a little light coming in, it can be a source of distraction for us, and it can leave our experience incomplete. So that's the most important thing, right? That's what they do. The first thing when you go into the cinema hall, the first thing they're going to do is switch off the lights. It becomes dark, right? And then what the next prerequisite is a powerful source of these three colors, right? Red, green, blue. After that, once that movie starts, then we kind of forget our existence for some time. We're so engaged in that. We exchange emotions with those creations on the screen, right? There is thrill, there is sorrow, there is love. We identify with the characters. And if somebody disturbs us in our samadhi, it's a so-called samadhi, we get annoyed. Similarly, this world is also a movie theater. So on the screen of our desires, there's a projection of these three modes. In complete darkness, which is ignorance primarily, we are enjoying the variety of 8.4 million species. Right? So we've been just going through that. So there's just a permutation combination. So what I'm explaining is that there's a permutation combination of these three qualities of goodness, passion, ignorance that this entire world is created of. There is nothing beyond that. Somebody who was in a mode of passion thought of a watch that you could wear on your hand, and it will have a phone in it, it will have a computer in it, it'll tell you your body's vitals and everything. That was a mode of passion. Somebody was passionate enough to do that. And so all this is there, out there. So similarly, according to the movie theater, we are also living in this life, in this so-called movie theater in this life. But the good thing is that in the movies, there are intervals, right? There is a break here and there. And similar to that intervals, we have in this, there are people who come and tell us about this philosophy. Oh, you're not a body, you're a soul, right? Something like a discussion that we are having now. So there are intervals like this in the movies also and in our lives also. So what we need to do is increase the time of that interval and reduce the time of the movie in this world. That's what we are trying to do here, right? Being more and more engaged in Krishna consciousness. Or at least be aware that I don't need to identify myself with the movie. Right? I don't need to borrow somebody else's sorrows or happiness in my imagination. Right? But unfortunately, we as living entities, we are living in a particular environment, right? So I had that image in the last, if you remember it in the last class we showed, right? So we had the gross body, this physical body that we see, made of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Then we have a subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Okay. So we have that. And the 3 modes are acting on the subtle body and the gross body. It cannot act upon me as the living entity sitting in there because I am spiritual in nature. But I start thinking, sitting in that environment, I get influenced by that environment. Right? Especially when I start identifying with it. That's the problem that's happening in this world. Right? So I start thinking that whatever is happening around me, that's me. I get influenced by it. So self-awareness, that is why self-awareness is needed. So self-awareness of independent of what's happening around us is what Bhagavad Gita is offering us. So in short, the modes prevent access to Krishna. And then this is an arrangement of the Supreme Lord because I, out of my tiny free will, asked for it from Krishna. That Krishna, I want to enjoy. Krishna said, okay, fine, go ahead, enjoy. So self-awareness is needed, and that's what Bhagavad Gita is offering. So we have the operator, the software, and the hardware, right? So let's say a computer, if you look at the analogy of a computer. Hardware is the gross body, software is the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego, and I am the operator, the living entity. But then we cannot develop this self-awareness fully until we take full shelter of the employer, Krishna. So when we become conscious of Krishna, Machitta, Maya Sakta Mana Partha, that we reach that level, then all these subject matters become evident to us. There'll be no misjudgments, no bewilderment, no confusions left. That is why Prabhupada has given us devotional service. He didn't just give us devotion. He gave us devotional service. With all the austerities, the penances we do, we come to that platform, right? So that's what's happening. So in the same, going back to that movie analogy, Mohitam na bhi janati. Krishna is saying, Mohitam na bhi janati. People who are deluded, they don't know me. So Krishna is like the movie director, right? So the movie is going on, Krishna is the director. But then Krishna is also sitting on the next chair, just very close to us. And all we need to do is just connect with him because he knows the movie thoroughly. Right? He understands everything. So we have to have faith in him. Right? He's not watching the movie, he's just creating it. Right? So there are two birds sitting on the same tree. Right? Dau Suparna Sayujya Sakhya Samana Vriksham Parishashva Jate. On a tree, there's an analogy that comes in the Mundaka Upanishad, which says that there are two birds sitting on a tree. One of the birds is eating the fruits of the tree. Sometimes the fruit is tasty, sometimes the fruit is bitter or sour, and the bird isn't like. But the other bird, he's just watching this other bird who's eating. The other bird is just looking. It's not eating the fruits. So that other bird is the Paramatma sitting in the heart, Krishna who's come as the Paramatma, and I'm the living entity who's tasting things here. And so all we need to do is just turn to that other bird, the Paramatma, and then we'll get all the awareness, the self-awareness, and all our doubts will go away. So also we should be aware of the strength of this three modes also. Prabhupada would tell his disciples that you're not afraid enough of Maya. That's why you continue to dabble with Maya. It just tightly holds you. Very, very tightly it holds you. I'm not sure if I gave this example in this discussion before, but we were distributing books at the Inner Harbor, the last MSF we had, monthly Sankirtan festival, the end of April. I saw a person, I was talking to this person, and he had a bottle of alcohol tucked away in his pocket. I talked to him barely for a minute or two. I showed him the Bhagavad Gita, showed him a picture or two, and he got very attracted, and he took the book and he gave me some donation. But that very night, I had a dream of alcohol. I had this dream that I went to this big palace, and there's a big table on which a lot of alcohol has been arranged. And suddenly, for a minute in my dream, I was attracted to it. But then immediately I reminded myself in the dream that no, Premdha, you have made a vow to your spiritual master, you cannot do it. But what I wanted to say was that the modes are very, very strong. Something which I have not touched for the past more than a decade now, but still it lingers somewhere deep down in my consciousness. That is why it came up in my dream. So we should be aware of the strength of these three modes, right? I was in DC yesterday. There were a couple of devotees visiting us. So I took them to DC to see the White House and some of the museums. I saw a homeless there, and homeless had a lot of these stuff that he has accumulated, all his so-called belongings. And he was arranging his belongings in a way that, he thought that, oh my God, this is like as if he had treasure there. That's the level of bewilderment we all are in. And we are fully convinced of our bewilderment. And as the saying goes, right, in English, there's a saying, no one is as hopelessly enslaved as the person who thinks he's free. That's it. Prabhupada gives the story about Indra. Let me see if I can find it. We can read it, actually. It's a very good story. Let me see if I can find it. I remember it's in the 3rd canto somewhere. You can read it. It's good to read Prabhupada's purport. Okay, yes. Let me share it. Yes, so this is 3rd canto, 30th chapter, verse number 5. Yes. Somebody would like to read it?
I can read. Prabhu. The conditioned living entity is satisfied in its own particular species of life, while deluded by the covering influence of the illusionary energy. He feels little inclined to cast off his body, even when in hell, for he takes delight in hellish enjoyment.
The purport also, please.
Purport, it is said that once Indra, the king of heaven, was cursed by his spiritual master, Abhīṣṭa-dohaṁ, on account of his misbehavior, and he became a hog on this planet. After many days, when Brahma wanted to recall him to his heavenly kingdom, Indra, in the form of a hog, forgot everything of his royal position in the heavenly kingdom, and he refused to go back. This is the spell of Maya. Even Indra forgets his heavenly standard of life and is satisfied with the standard of a hog's life. By the influence of Maya, the conditional soul becomes so affectionate towards his particular type of body that if he is offered, give up this body and immediately you will have a king's body, he will not agree. This attachment strongly affects all conditioned living entities. Lord Krishna is personally canvassing, give up everything in this material world. Come to me and I shall give you all protection. But we are not agreeable. We think we are quite all right. Why should we surrender unto Krishna and go back to his kingdom? This is called illusion or Maya. Everyone is satisfied with his standard of living, however abominable it may be.
Yeah. So this is the essence that what Krishna is explaining in this verse that we just read. That deluded by the three modes, we don't know Krishna, who's above modes. So because of this delusion that we have, as we're reading in this 335, this is it. So we're saying that Indra, he became a pig, a hog, and he forgot, and then he had his own piglets and he had his own pool of mud where he would love to hang out, and he had his wife and so on and so forth. And Brahma comes to him and says that, Indra, come on, let's go. What are you doing here? The whole heavenly planets are kind of just falling apart because the king is not there. And he said, no, I'm not coming. I'm so happy. Look at my piglets, how sweet they are. They're so beautiful. And Brahma is confused. He said, what's going on here? So then Brahma realizes that this is the strength of Maya. This is the influence of Maya. So the reason I brought this story up in this discussion was that we are not, as Prabhupada would say, we are not afraid enough of Maya. So I always feel that, oh, I'm smart, I am strong, I can handle this Maya, I can interact with it. I can, because now I'm a devotee. That's really foolish of me to think that way. Obviously, we are living in this world, we cannot fully detach ourselves from Maya, but then we should be cautious while interacting with it. We should be very, very cautious. So that's what is being explained here in this verse. That's what's happening. That's what Krishna is saying. That we are so fully convinced of our bewilderment that we do not recognize Krishna. And as Kali Yuga comes close, as we are getting more and more deeper into Kali Yuga, it's getting worse. There is this modern culture of independence. You see it all around us. Independence. I know what I want to do. But the Vedic culture is a culture of interdependence. Right? Nowadays, everybody is saying, I can do anything, everything. I can do everything. I don't need any permissions from anybody. I'm born free. Don't shackle me, and all that sort of nonsense philosophies that are being propagated. People start thinking, oh, I can teach myself everything. I don't need a teacher. I don't need to submit to a teacher. Right? So there's this rebellious modern psyche that's there out there. Right? And such people are now treated as heroes who are kind of being of this rebellious nature. But our culture is not of that. Our culture is of interdependence, and primarily the dependence on Krishna. We can never live independently in this society. We always need others also. So that's the essence that Krishna is establishing in this verse, that because of these three modes, we are bewildered. You are bewildered. Sorry, not Krishna. Krishna is not bewildered. We are bewildered as living entities, like Indra becoming a hog, right? So the soul gets influenced. Just Prabhupada gives the example of fire, that out of the fire, many sparks are coming out all the time. And they all are glowing equivalently. They all have the same amount of glow in them. But depending on where they fall, they can manifest differently. If it falls in water, it just completely extinguishes. If it falls on dry grass, it can create a fire of its own. Right? But if it falls on wet grass, it'll glow for some time and then die out. But depending on where the spark of the fire falls, it will manifest differently. Right? So if we depend on Krishna, then that's the right path. Then we are able to overcome this Maya. Then that's actually the next verse Krishna will say about it. Let's read this. I've highlighted it. There are many different kinds of living entities, human beings, demigods, animals, etc. And each and every one of them is under the influence of material nature. And all of them have forgotten the transcendental personality of Godhead. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, and even those who are in the mode of goodness, cannot go beyond the impersonal Brahman conception of the absolute truth. They are bewildered before the Supreme Lord in his personal feature, which possesses all beauty, opulence, knowledge, strength, fame, and renunciation. When even those who are in goodness cannot understand, what hope is there for those in passion and ignorance? Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all the three modes of material nature, and those who are truly established in Krishna consciousness are actually liberated. This is what Prabhupada is saying. And this verse number 14, it's also a very important verse. Actually, all the verses of this chapter are very beautiful. But this one is where Krishna is establishing that in the earlier verse, he said that you are deluded by the three modes. Now, somebody can ask, okay, fine, I agree, I am deluded by the three modes. How do I come out of that? That's the question that Krishna answers in the next verse here. Daivi hai esha guna mai, mama maya duratyaya, mam eva ye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Surrender. It's an important word here. Surrender unto me, can easily cross beyond it. Right? So Maya is divine. Krishna is calling Maya divine. Right? Somebody might say that if Maya causes us to be lusty, how can it be divine? Right? Because the reason Krishna is calling Maya divine is because Maya does not cause us to be lusty. It only facilitates us. I am the one who desires. Just like in a multiple choice question, right? The teacher doesn't want the student to fail. The teacher only wants the student to be sure that he or she takes the right answer. Right? So we have this choice whether I want to be in Maya or out of Maya. Okay. So Maya is not causing me to desire. It's just facilitating my desire. So like father, right? A father can put a child with a strict tutor. So the father is like Krishna and Maya is like the strict tutor. Krishna wants to make sure that only those whose purpose is strong come to me. Because, and we have talked about it earlier in the past, that Krishna has been cheated and hurt so many times that he wants to be sure that, hey, are you really convinced that this world is not the place for you and you want to come to me? That is why Maya is here. Maya is more like a teacher here. It's not that Maya has been created to push us away from Krishna. Maya is actually making us strong enough that when we go to Krishna, we are ready to meet him. Even Maya wants us to surrender. Right? The promise of pleasure, all these temptations, and then all the tribulations that we go through, the threats of pain, they all are removed for a person who surrenders to Krishna. Right? So this verse is divided into two parts. The first part Devi Esha Gunamai Mam Maya Duratte, is telling us how Maya deludes us. The second part introduces us to the power of Krishna. Mam prapadyante, Maya metam tarantite. Then you can know. So the next part introduces the power of Krishna. So that is why Krishna is calling this energy divine. That's the first part. The other word that I highlighted here is surrender. Right. Now, surrender is it has a very negative, sound to it. In today's culture, surrender means that you raise up your arms and you're like the police is standing there. So that's called surrender. But no, English is a very incomplete language. It's not. It doesn't fully explain the meaning of the Sanskrit words. Right? So the word is Sharanagati. Sharanagati means seeking shelter. Okay? Just like a child, right? When a child is afraid, he will go running to his mother and hold his mother's leg tightly, or his father's leg tightly, and then the child feels protected. So that's the kind of surrender that's being talked about in Bhakti. Sharanagati. It's voluntary. It's not forceful, right? So that's the essence that's being highlighted in this verse. So surrender, right? So there are many such examples in our Vedic scriptures about surrender. One such example is of Draupadi, and also of Arjun. Even though they seem very different, they both are devotees, right? So Draupadi is raising her arms and calling out Krishna's name, and Arjun shooting arrows on the battlefield. It's both his surrender. So surrender essentially means choosing action that takes us towards Krishna and giving up action that takes us away from Krishna. That's basically the meaning of surrender. Some people question that, hey, Draupadi was not surrendered, and then she got surrendered. Later on, she surrendered and she raised both her arms in surrender. That's not the case. Draupadi was always surrendered, right? So we can express our surrender through dependence on Krishna and also diligently following the action that Krishna is asking us to do. So the example of Draupadi stands for dependence, and the diligence is exemplified by Arjun. Right? So that's what. So Draupadi dependence, Arjun diligence through his eagerness to fight. Right. So, but then that doesn't mean that we give up our intelligence or we don't try. So Draupadi first used her intelligence to resist disrobing. She argued with the people sitting in the assembly there. She put out the very logical argument. So she said that, hey, if somebody has already lost himself, how can he put me on stake? So when Yudhishthira had already lost himself in the game, after that he put Draupadi at stake. So she asked some very logical questions. But then when she realized that it's not working, then she used her intelligence to surrender to Krishna. And then that intelligence is also coming from Krishna. So that's what, so faith refers to that kind of a certainty. So certainty that Krishna is God, but then faith is also openness to possibility, that Krishna can help us in many different ways. So let me be open to answers. So people who have the weakness of heart, they are dependent on material solutions. And when those solutions don't work, we become helpless. Openness means we have problems and we know a solution, but we let Krishna decide how he wants to help me or solve my problem. So there is dependence and there is diligence on Krishna, right? For things that are in our control, we have to be diligent. For things that are not under our control, we depend on Krishna, right? So understanding the concept of surrender is important, so I just want to bring that out, that Bhagavad Gita is teaching us how surrender can lead to peace. But it might sound a bit paradoxical because we ordinarily associate peace with peaceful situations. But then here we are seeing it's a war happening, right? So So if one lets go of things that are not in our control, and then only control things that only focus on things that are in our control, then we can come to that level of surrender. So Bhagavad Gita wisdom teaches us or helps us understand that things that are out of our control are still in Krishna's control. When we appreciate that he's our well-wisher and that he can bring good even out of bad, letting go of things become easier. Last week Gopal Prabhu had that question that, if somebody takes away our service, how should we deal with that? What should we feel? If we have faith on Krishna, then it wouldn't matter to us if our service is taken away. We always think that, hey, whatever is happening to me is Krishna's plan to bring me closer to him. So everything is good. So it's taking me closer to him. So this letting go is one way of looking at surrender. That's how it's associated with surrender. But then I think when we were discussing last time, I think it was Rasala Krishna Prabhu, he was asking that, hey, it's people who take away our services, people are still that little free will, So yes, people can take away our services. Obviously, we have to be vigilant also. If somebody's trying to take us for a ride, we have to be cautious also. We cannot always just say, oh, no, it's all Krishna coming. But then, so that's what also surrender means, that, it implies that for things that are in our control, we do to the best of our capacity. That's exemplified by Arjun in the 18th chapter. Towards the end, Arjun says, Karishe Vachanam Tava, I will do your will, Krishna. So he's a warrior, he's an archer. So for him, surrender means fully using his God-given skill in God's service, right? And so this kind of affirmative sense of surrender also applies to us. So we have resources, we have talents, we use them in the service and contribution to Krishna, right? So we become peaceful by letting go of the uncontrollable and purposefully taking up what is controllable by us. So yes, obviously we if services are taken away by us and we feel we become morose, so we take into account that, hey, Krishna is Krishna has a bigger plan for me, right? But then that doesn't mean we let people take us for a ride, and we also have to be vigilant about it. That if somebody is trying to cheat us again and again, then we have to do something about it. So surrender means both. So going back, diligence and dependence on Krishna. So that's how we attain peace. There are many such examples in Bhagavatam also. Surrender comes in, right? Gajendra also surrenders to Krishna, right? But then he also had to put in some endeavor. That surrender requires training. It requires trying. Surrender also requires trying. Gajendra did not sink in self-pity, but he looked up and he called for the Lord. That also requires some endeavor. So there's this dual dynamic in bhakti: dependence, diligence, and both of them are integral for our devotion. And as I mentioned, dependence means that we are open to possibilities. Last week, when we were discussing Gopal Prabhu's question, I brought up that verse from the 10th canto, 10:88:8, where Krishna was saying that when I'm really very happy with somebody, I take away their all their money. But then that doesn't mean that Krishna always does that. For Sudama, Krishna actually gave him a lot of money, gave him a lot of opulence. So Krishna gave him opulence. So we have to be open to possibility that Krishna can help us in many different ways. So we be diligent, we have that kind of that faith, and we depend on Krishna, and then everything works out for us, right? So when one of the tenets of how to speak in public for Krishna is to depend on Krishna only after you have prepared. So if I do not prepare for a class and I say, oh, I'm dependent on Krishna, that is not dependence, that is irresponsibility. So we should not take dependence and irresponsibility as the same thing. We have to be extremely responsible in doing what we can, but we also should do it in a consciousness of service. understanding that we are not the doers. We are doing it for the pleasure of Krishna, right? So we are giving, even when you all reach out to people, you preach. So what we are doing is we are investing in other living entities with this idea that it's helping me purify. So if you look at everything from that perspective, then we are in devotion. Without ability, we cannot do anything, and that ability is also coming from Krishna. So it's not our entitlement; it's an endowment. It has been gifted to us by Krishna. The service we have been doing is gifted to us by Krishna, right? So we don't leave everything. It's not like, oh, I'll leave everything to Krishna. I'll just sit idly, and no, that's not the way it is. So Krishna is saying, do your diligent duty, and then you depend on me. Right? And as soon as I make this firm commitment that, okay, I'm going to be dependent on Krishna, then all the personified potencies will come and assist you in ways that we cannot even imagine. But first, that surrender has to happen. The 3 levels we have talked about in the past, right? There is grace. There is an initial grace that comes from Krishna. We meet devotees. But then there is a choice that I can make. Hey, do I want to continue meeting the devotees, or I want to give up that? There's a choice we make, right? So we have this opportunity to be grateful and to practice devotional service wholeheartedly. But that's a choice I make. And when I make that choice, then that grace comes. Then grace expands. Then Krishna gives us that inner happiness. And he gives us a conducive external environment for us to grow, right? But then this choice has to happen before the grace can come in. And this surrender, Krishna doesn't motivate us by force, but love. So love for Krishna. So when we surrender in this way, we do become bound, but we become bound by love. And this bonding, this binding sets us free. So surrender is a very important concept. That's Krishna is bringing out here. So surrender just, yes, some people say, oh, Krishna, surrender, let Krishna do everything. I have met devotees who say, oh, oh, Prabhuji, I cannot do anything. Oh, what can I do? Krishna doesn't want me to, study, or Krishna doesn't want me to memorize verses, or Krishna doesn't want me to do service. When he motivates me, I'll do it. Or, many people say this, that, hey, oh, I think Krishna doesn't want me yet to come into this wholeheartedly. When he will motivate me from within my heart, I'll come and take up bhakti, I'll take up chanting. That's all nonsense. It's just you're making fun of bhakti, actually. You also have to have a choice. Krishna already has done it. He has brought you in association of devotees, association of Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita, deities, prasadam, everything. And now you're saying, oh, no, Krishna will when Krishna tells me, he's telling you already there. So surrender is not just a blatant neglect of everything and you say, oh, I'll leave everything to Krishna. No. So and that level, you might see him in some devotees, but that level is very high. That's an Uttam Adhikari's level. For me as a neophyte, that's not the level to be involved in. So hope I have established the principle of surrender in a good way so that it's understood to all of us. I'll take a pause here. Any thoughts, any comments here? Surrender is a very important concept. If we don't understand that and try to just use our intelligence, say, oh no, I will figure it out, then it becomes a long journey, a very, very long journey. We keep struggling in that anartha nivritti because we haven't fully understood what Krishna means by surrender. What does he mean by, what is that? Prapadyante. The word is prapadyante, surrender. Okay, any thoughts, any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I think today you have explained everything so well, and I especially like the analogy you used of that film, that we are just here and watching an unreal situation, and we get entrapped into that situation with a mode of 3 modes, like ignorance, passion, and goodness. And like our situation, although we are in Krishna consciousness and we are trying our level best to get out of those mode of material nature, but then still we are not there yet. And it really feels so good to really understand that that we really are watching that film here. We are just engrossed in all kinds of situations, happiness, sorrows, attachments, and whatnot. And to go beyond that, we have the set formula and we're trying to apply it, yet we are not fully into it. So, I mean, and then next you explain the way how we have to surrender and how accurate that is, that we actually do surrender, but not surrender completely to experience that bliss in that transcendental situation. So thank you for bringing all that up and really, really clarifies so many things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that, Mataji. Yes, it's all available to us. Yes, we just have to understand. And you brought out a nice point that, you know, we are trying, but we are not there yet. Prabhupada explains this in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I think it's the 31st verse. He says that Krishna's protection is available to everybody. The moment we come into bhakti, from the very beginning of devotional service, it's right away there available to us. So the moment we simply begin devotional service, so that, as I was saying, right, initial grace coming from Krishna, you know, association, prasadam, but then I make a voluntary choice. The moment I make that voluntary choice, Krishna, I'm going to come into bhakti. I'm not there, I'm far off from the end point, but then I'm immediately protected by Krishna. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshasmi ma shucha. Krishna says this in the 1866. Right? Protection begins immediately. So the Lord is so kind and so merciful that he gives the devotee proper guidance, all the protection, and the devotee can then make solid progress in bhakti process, right? Without much outward disturbances. Right? So, but that choice has to be made by me. So that's the onus. The onus is on me. Yes, thank you for bringing that out, Mataji. Anything else, anyone? What else do we have?
Haribol.
Haribol, Prabhu.
So I'm a little upset because I was enjoying the information, but then at the end you say, so now if you understand the surrender, you got it. Well, I didn't catch it all. I mean, could you just give me a couple sentences to surmise this so I can get out of my enjoyment and put the notes down?
Well, if I have to summarize it, there are 2 words: dependence and diligence.
Okay.
So surrender encompasses both of them. And you can demonstrate your surrender through dependence also, but also through diligence. Dependence is more of a higher level of devotee, right? He's like a pure devotee. Right? Prabhupada was fully dependent on Krishna. And so he was not afraid of anybody. We, in the beginning of bhakti, we have to be diligent also. Diligent in the means that whatever Krishna has provided us in terms of our talent, in terms of all the services we are getting, we use our ability, and we do it consciously, right? So we see them as Krishna's endowments to us. So diligence and dependence has to be there. Both of them have to be there in surrender. And if you go deeper, I mentioned another level of it was openness to possibility. So faith doesn't mean that certainty is there. Yes, faith means certainty is there. Yes, I know Krishna is Bhagavan. Okay, fine. That is one aspect of faith. But the other aspect of faith is that I'm also open to possibilities. That Krishna can come to me probably in a way that I might not appreciate it at that time. Or he might push me around to fine-tune my path, to fine-tune my movement towards him, but I might not appreciate it. But I should be open to those possibilities. People who read Mahabharata, they clearly see that the Pandavas went through hell. You know, Bhima was poisoned. They were put in a house made of shellac, which was burned down by Duryodhana. They go to the forest. There are cannibals living in the forest who want to eat them up. They then, then yes, so many things were happening to them. So somebody can say, oh my God, Krishna's devotees, they have to suffer. I don't want to be a devotee. But that's a very narrow-minded set. You know, if you are just looking only for the good, so you will say, oh, I'll take God only when he's good. But then we don't understand that good is coming from Krishna, but the negativity is what I am creating. But then if we have dependence whole and soul on Krishna, I'll say, oh no, Krishna, I'll depend on you, whatever material condition you put me in, then, you know, Krishna starts doing magic in our lives. That firm commitment when it comes, and Prabhupada says this in the first canto, second chapter, I think it's the 12th verse, that all the synchronized energies come and help us out. All the personified potencies, they come and assist us in everything. But first I have to come and surrender to Krishna. So that's the essence, Prabhu. I don't know if that made sense or not.
Mm-hmm. So the last point there, you're saying the Pandas had so many nightmares, right?
Yep.
And but they weren't trying for a free ride. What did they do? They had whatever happened. What was their mentality?
So the mentality is that whatever is happening to me is Krishna's benevolent plan to purify me and bring me closer to him. That's the thought process that the Pandavas had the whole time. And Kunti Maharani takes it even a step further, where she says, right, that because all the miseries were there, you were close to us. But now our miseries have kind of gone away. Now you're also leaving us. So please let the miseries stay with us. That's a level of a pure devotee, that they are actually asking for miseries, because when they're miserable, they have problems in life, Krishna is much closer to them. But that's a very high level. But yes, so that was the thought that Pandavas had the whole time.
Yeah, because so her conditioning and her consciousness is, yeah, you're all I got. And even
Yes.
the more, the heavier it gets, it doesn't matter. I have to hold on.
Yeah.
And that example, even in our minimal process or positioning, we still have some insight that there is this higher authority. You know, even like in this, what was it? In the 6th chapter where he tells Arjuna, you know, how patient, what is it? Faith, practice, and determination help you overcome these obstacles.
Yes.
You know, so whatever it can be, you try on your own. You know, you try on your own and say, man, this ain't working. What happened here? And then, you know, you turn to Krishna and say, yes, dear Lord, I'm going to keep trying. I can't do it on my own. And I just have, you know, practice and determination to do this. And Krishna knows how much we can take and can't take. And he certainly is not going to let, we have to have really faith that he's not going to let us be lost, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. When we are trying to do it all by ourselves, then when things go bad, that's the reason why you're always in anxiety and fear. In the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, the Nava Yogendras, one of the Nava Yogendras, Kavi or Havi, one of them, he says that Bhayam Duiti Abhiniveshata Syad Ishata Pitasya Viprayo Smriti. Bhayam Duiti Abhinivesha. Bhayam is fear. Duiti means I have considered myself separate from Krishna. Ishadapitasya Viprayo Smriti. That causes my intelligence to become overturned. I become foolish. I go on the other side. Viprayo Smriti. So Bhayam Dviti Ishadapitasya Viprayo Smriti. Yeah, so that's what's happening. If I try to do it all by myself, for sure I'm going to fall flat on my face at some point or the other. Right? It's bound to happen. It's not, nobody has a perfect life in this world. But if I keep saying, oh no, it's okay, I'll figure it out myself, I just keep moving and all. So fine, you can keep moving. In the following verses, Krishna calls them Mudha, right? Naradhama. He gives 4 kinds of people who never surrendered to him. They are Mudhas. But as devotees, because we have this intelligence and knowledge, we just surrender to Krishna. Things that are not in our control, we know that they are in Krishna's control. We let Krishna take care of them. Right? But then whatever is in my control, I take that up and try to do my best with them. Still with a sense of surrender, with a sense of dependence on Krishna. everywhere the surrender has to be there, but things that are in my control, I can do them. But if they're not, I just depend on Krishna for the answer.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I mean, there's so much that's going on, but it's so much our responsibility too. And so you're guiding us through these purports that, show us how to navigate this path. Because we have some, common sense to see that something's going on here that I can't handle.
Yeah.
And at the same time, then where do you turn? Where do you go? And so in this little compact little book, it shows you where to go and what you can do, and that no one's separate from it. He even explains how the nightmare happens. There's a perspective there on what, and even this information is not accessible. This is one of the key words, is that devotional service. None of this knowledge, none of this positioning, none of this clarity of thought, nothing can come without devotional service.
Yes. And it's so bewildering. I gave the example of that movie theater. We are so enamored by it, I can't even see that my life is miserable. I gave the example of Indra. He became a pig. He was the king of heaven. And he became a pig, and now he's enjoying being a pig. He doesn't want to go back and be a king. That's the kind of bewilderment we have. Somebody asked me this question a couple of weeks ago. He said, he was not arrogant. I think I might have brought this up earlier also. He said that, why do we need all this? I'm happy. My family is happy. My children are okay. I have a good job. I have a good house. I'm taking care of my parents. Why I don't need all this, Bhakti Pras. That's the level of bewilderment we are in. Krishna is clearly saying, Jan Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Jan Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. Everybody has to go through these 4 things: birth, death, old age, and disease. But we don't see that as a misery. That's the level of bewilderment we all are in.
Well, and that was like earlier today. I don't know if you remember, but I used that word bewilderment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About finer elements of this type of surrender, about the finer levels. Some of these things here, these are the gross levels, the real bottom type levels of bewilderment. They're really powerful. But then when you start climbing out of it, there's these other subtle forms of bewilderment, but still there's no clarity of thought. There's no clarity. You can't pinpoint. Well, and that's what was happening to me. I said, why am I where's I couldn't even figure out the bewilderment.
Yeah.
Until I spoke to you. I mean, you had to put a flashlight on the limitations of my mentality. But this is amazing, because we have to understand this concept, that in this reality of our existence. It's a concept, but it's the reality of our existence.
Reality of existence. Yes. Yeah.
So
that's what. Yeah. Prabhupada says this in the Nectar of Instruction, the preface, that when you come to the mode of goodness, then things become clear to you. Your Paramatma from within your heart reveals how to move forward. But we have to come to the mode of goodness. Ignorance and passion is practically nearly impossible to even grasp what Krishna is explaining to us. That is why Prabhupada gave us these 4 regulatory principles. So I always appreciate that Prabhupada has condensed the entire Vedic knowledge in such a small, condensed, practical approach that anybody can pick it up and take it home and become a devotee. That's the beauty of what Prabhupada has done as an Acharya. Nobody has ever been able to do that in the history of mankind. So, but then that is needed. We have to come to the mode of goodness before we actually start understanding what Krishna is saying, what my true nature is, and all those sort of questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, the next 2 verses are, so we talked about this divine consciousness. We talked about why it's divine, gunas. Okay, this is a good, let's read this. Mam means unto Krishna, Vishnu, and only, and not Brahma and Shiva, Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajoguna and Tamoguna to release the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya, and therefore he alone can give release to the conditioned souls. The Veda Svetashvatara Upanishad 3.8 confirms this in the phrase Tam eva viditva, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnu Evana Samshaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. So, this is a good section. What is talking about? Yes, so the next two verses are going to talk about the four kinds of people who surrender and who don't. We can pick this up the next week. Anybody has any other points that they want to bring up? Otherwise, we can wrap up. No? Okay, sounds good.